If you only knew the power of the dark side.
Now, I think people just like BAOFENG radios. I'm quite a big fan of them. This is my original UV-5R, the radio that kicked off all of the dark side scene on PMR. And I've been waiting as well to see if there's going to be a Exuma compatible BAOFENG radio, and here it is. This is the K6 series of radios. I think that's just a generic series. We know that most of the circuitry in this radio comes out of a factory in China, but yeah, we get an owner's manual. We get an owner's manual with the radio. It's very generic. It's okay. It's not the best. I do like a sort of nice sized owner's manual, but it generally takes you around the layout of the radio, gives you an idea what the keys do. A lot of this will be irrelevant if you're going to go ahead and you're going to flash the radio firmware with Exuma, then a lot of this becomes irrelevant, and that's what the majority of you are going to do. So this is the radio itself. Let's get it out of the box before we put the battery on. Now this is the later type of Quansheng radios. I'll explain that in a moment, what's changed. But firstly, out of the box, there is a radio, and it's rather smart. It looks rather smart. Let me just put the battery on for full effect. You get a decent sized battery with this radio, 2600 mAh. Should give you loads and loads of operating time. Yeah, quite a decent sized battery. Also like the fact that the USB-C slot is now in the battery itself with a little charging LED. We'll have a look on the radio, but I imagine they've changed that. They've taken that off the radio, and that's not a bad thing, because if you want to get a couple of spare batteries, you can always have a battery on charge. You don't have to not use the radio. There we go, that's the battery attached to the radio. So quite chunky, I've got to say, compared to the original UV-5R there, you can sort of see that it's chunked out a little bit, but it just gives you that extra bit of battery strength. Let's put the antenna on. Well, then we'll have a look at what we get in the box. So just a simple little rubber ducky antenna. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, a lot of these radios are sort of getting the longer antennas now. I don't know if it gives you extra range or not. It's difficult to test, to be perfectly honest. As long as the antenna's tuned to the radio, it should be fine. But that's I suppose once it's on the radio, I mean, again, if we compare it to UV-5R, you can see it's longer. Now, nice that this comes in what looks like a genuine box from Banggood. There's a lot of counterfeit radios around. It's very difficult to determine whether you're getting a genuine item. To me, this looks like a genuine BAOFENG item. We get a charge base, which is always nice. Has an LED to let you know that you're charging. Does come with a shaver plug. We call these a shaver plug in the UK. So it looks like you will have to get yourself an adapter. Now, I happen to have a few of these knocking around, but just basically one of these adapters. Make sure that they've got the plastic insulation there to make them compliant. But yeah, you're just going to need an adapter, or sometimes if you're going to use the base station or the base charger, I've cut these off before, just wired on a normal plug. But it's nice that it's got there. You don't need it, of course, because you can charge straight into the back of the battery on the radio. We have a belt clip. Yeah, okay, it's metal pinned, but it's a plastic hinge. I'll be honest with you, especially as the radio is a little bit chunky, I prefer the ones that screw into the back of the radio. I think the UV-5R had that. Yeah, you can see a metal clip. I think that's a bit of a backward step, to be honest with you. I think that's cheaping out a little bit. Yeah, would have preferred a metal clip myself. I mean, it should be absolutely fine, but it is a weak point on the radio there being all plastic, especially as that's quite chunky. But it is what it is, I guess. And then finally, we get a little headphone set here with a microphone, and it's got a little push to talk as well. That's quite good. So you've got a clip-on microphone and a little push to talk. So that's better, because normally they only work on a voice function. Oh, and also finally, of course, you get the USB-C charging lead if you want to charge the battery directly, and I imagine that's what probably most of you are going to do. Right, let me clear down this clutter on the bench space, and let's have a look at what's changed on this newer design Quansheng radio, because things have changed. So straight away, getting this out of the box, it's quite chilly up here today, and the screen surround here is metal. It'll be a tin or an aluminium, and it feels nice. You know, it just feels cold. It feels like a good quality. We do have a screen protector on. That's always nice to see. There we go. Peel that off. So just an LCD mono screen, which I actually prefer. So this is the original Quansheng. This is an original version, which is obviously copying the design, isn't it, with the orange on-off knob there. But as you can see, this newer version of the Quansheng is slightly bigger, slightly taller, and we've now got an extra row of buttons. They've moved some of the buttons, which are on the side here, they've moved those down to here. And then we have an extra button here, which I'll explain in a moment. That's a very useful button. But as you can see on the Quansheng, this surround, it's plastic, whereas you get this rather nice gunmetal, full metal. I mean, you pay that little bit extra for a BAOFENG or BAOFENG, and both radios will pretty much do the same thing once you flash them, but it's just that little bit extra quality, isn't it? And then moving on to the side here, yeah, pretty much everything's the same. Push TT. Oh, it feels nice. And on this side, so the USB-C that was on under here has now been removed, if I can open that. So yeah, that's now removed. You've got the standard 2-pin Kenwood style port, so you can still program the radio in chirp. You need a programming cable, but okay, they're quite cheap to get, quite generic. And I think on this older version, yeah, the USB-C was on the side, and that's now gone onto the back on the battery. Now, as far as the buttons go, they actually feel better. If I shut up for a minute, which is rare, isn't it? But you listen to the clicks. And we'll go back to the Quan. I don't know if that comes out on video, but the clicks you're getting on the BAOFENG, just that they're more tactile. And also the buttons are very slightly more protruded from the front of the radio there. I don't know if you can see that, probably not, but I always found with the BAOFENG that my fingers aren't that big, but sometimes my thumb, I would catch two buttons, which was a little bit annoying. I do like the extra row of control buttons there as well. They've got that extra bit of space. Now, when it comes down to the speaker, this was my biggest complaint on the original Quansheng radios, was the speaker was very, very thin. It was very tinny sounding. They've got more space now. I'm hoping they may have replaced that speaker with something a little bit better. We'll have a look in a moment. Tops of the radios, yes, we've still got the obligatory LED flashlight, which I suppose that's useful, isn't it? Let's move that to one side. Now, the good thing about these radios is they pretty much work all the same. We're not interested in a lot of its advanced functions for ham radio. So basically, on the front here, you've got your 2 blocks of frequencies, your 2 VFO, and you've got the A and B button there to change between them. You can change from frequency to memory,
frequency mode, channel mode,
or channel mode as they call it. This button is quite good. This is a new sweep button. Now, the idea is on this, when you've got the memory channels loaded up, say PMR for example, if you hold this down, the radio goes into a search and seek. At the moment I've not programmed it, so it probably won't find anything. And what that does, that searches all through the frequencies or your program channels, depending which mode you're in. When it finds a signal of the highest strength, it will stop and log on to it, and then it will decipher the CTCSS or DCS privacy codes that someone might be using. So it's a little bit of an eavesdropper really. So it will automatically tune into their radio, which means that if you wanted to, you would be able to talk to them. Right, I've turned the screen brightness all the way down to 1. It's quite a bright screen actually. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So as I was saying, once we're in the menu system here, there is an awful lot to choose from. What I'm really looking for is the there's your codes. I'm looking for the squelch, because the squelch normally sets quite high on these. Bandwidth wide, I generally have that on narrow, to be perfectly honest. Transmit power high or low, 2.5 or supposedly 5 watts. TX forbid, again that would stop you using it as a PMR. Okay, so I'm just looking for the squelch mode. Scan mode. Squelch. So that's a bit odd. So your squelch is right in there at 23.
Squelch.
And it's set to 3 by default. I actually prefer that to squelch.
Squelch.
I prefer that to be 1. But that's a little bit odd. That's something you're probably going to use
Confirm.
quite a lot. And they've put that way in the menu system now. Not all that keen on that, to be honest. Right, let me turn the lights back up so you can see what's going on in the land of the light. So yeah, not 100% on that. So PTT on the side. These buttons should work the same. This should be the radio button,
On.
which it is. Now we can now have a listen to that speaker and see if that's been improved.
Medical Council, which regulates doctors in the UK, refused in 2017 to investigate alleged medical malpractice at Harrods. A complaint was made by a woman who underwent an intimate examination while applying for a job at the department store in 2008 when it was owned by Mohammed Al Fayed, who's accused of
That's
rape
full
and sexual
volume.
assault. Our correspondent Tom Simon says the woman was angry about the response.
The council said it couldn't investigate because more than 5 years...
Just going to put the little Quansheng next to it. I don't think it's really been improved. Let's turn the Quansheng up a little bit.
Leave the country. Sir Keir Starmer has urged them to go because of the fighting between Hezbollah and Israel. A major review of the way police forces in England and Wales deal with...
Let's turn up the BAOFENG. To be honest, it sounds about the same.
The report, written by the Independent Office for Police Conduct, Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and the College of Policing, warned that many victims were not being protected. Here's our special correspondent, Lucy Manning.
The review of how stalking is treated by police was triggered by a super complaint from a coalition of charities. It found there were too many occasions when stalking victims weren't protected. It concluded the law was confusing, that officers lacked understanding of the scale and types of stalking.
That is that's full volume as well. I mean, it's okay. I'm not saying it's not usable, but that still sounds a little bit thin to me compared to other PMR radios. So I suspect that's got the same speaker. So I kind of think they've missed a trick there. I think they could have put in a bigger, beefier speaker like you see maybe on some of the Retivest radios. But yeah, okay, it is what it is, isn't it? So the next button down on the radio is going to be the flashlight. Yeah, there we go. It's all right. It's not brilliant, but yeah, it's okay, I guess. And that'd be flash. Yeah, that's what's there, isn't it? Let's turn the radio back off and get back to the thing. So yeah, so I think overall, without going through all of the menus, I like the quality. I like the quality of the keyboard. It feels definitely a step up. I like the metal bezel and the rest of the buttons. Yeah, they feel very nice. I mean, for a cheap radio, it feels good. And it does feel nice and chunky in the hand. It sort of sits better than the old model. But again, that speaker, I think they've missed a trick there. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reprogram the memories in Chirp, leave the firmware as it is, and then we'll just do a very basic range test and we can hear how it sounds. I'm not going to show you how to do that because, as I say, the link will be in the description. Right, okay, we're back in this situation again. I'm not surprised, really. Yeah, the BAOFENG here is not compatible with Chirp. I did try other BAOFENG models, but this new firmware and menu system is completely different. I did wonder that when I was going through it. Exactly the same story as we had with the XH data there, because they're basically the same radio. So we have to wait for Chirp to catch up now to make this. It will do in time to make this compatible. Same story with Exuma, which is my favourite firmware flash. I was hoping to flash it with Exuma. Once it didn't go in Chirp, I thought we'd be in the same boat, and we are currently. Exuma 0.22 is not compatible with the radio, and that's a real shame, actually. But we are waiting for 0.023, and hopefully that will solve the problem. So yeah, same situation as the XH data, really. But as I say, as it stands, pity we can't flash it. But as a little sort of dark side PMR radio, yeah, I mean it's quite nicely made. Buttons are very nice. I like the screen bezel. And so we're going to go ahead. I've put a couple of channels into the memories, bit of a ball ache, same as the other radio. But we go ahead and do the standard testing now and see what range we get, see what it sounds like, and I'll conclude it at the end of the video. So here we are then. We're out to test this new BAOFENG Quansheng design radio. Now obviously this is a dark side radio. We are predicting around about 2 watts output because we've reprogrammed it in PMR. People always ask me, well, what range can I get out of one of these dark side radios? It's a very difficult question for me to answer because it depends on your terrain. I quite recently did a legal PMR video when me and Mrs. Fred were on holiday, and that did quite well, probably just not far, probably just over a quarter of a mile through woods and trees, and that did quite well. When you start adding houses, lampposts, cars, man-made structures between the two radios, your FM signals bounces about, and you get all sorts of buzzing and interference and static. So it's a difficult question to answer. If you go up on the high ground, if you was like one sort of hilltop to another hilltop, you can get absolutely miles and miles and miles out of these. I've seen videos of 50-60 miles and it's well believable. But I find that using these around a suburban area, worse if you're in the city, the range absolutely diminishes quite alarmingly. So out of a standard sort of half-watt PMR radio, I can generally sort of get about a quarter of a mile in a suburban area. So with these, although these radios are about 4 times the power, maybe just a little bit more than the PMR, you don't get 4 times the range. So it's hard to say. It depends on the terrain. So I'm walking out now. I'm walking out for about 15 minutes. So I'm probably just under about a half mile, something like that, in a very dense, built-up area. I'm deliberately going to an area where there's lots and lots of traffic, lots of metal structures, just to put a lot of obstacles in the way of this radio. But it should get back to the house, no problem. But what I'm looking for is clarity and the signal basically not breaking up. And hopefully you'll be able to recognise my voice. As long as it's clean, I'm absolutely fine. So I'm just walking out now, so join me in a moment on the very noisy flyover and we can start the testing. So here we are then, my usual perch for testing on the busy flyover. It's not that far from the QTH, but it should get back on this radio without any problem. So on channel 2, PMR, hopefully it will stay clear. Let's do an audio check. Audio check 1 2 1 2 3 4 on the BAOFENG here. Audio check 1 2 1 2 3 4 on the BAOFENG here at the busy flyover. Audio check 1 2 1 2 3 4 audio. There we go. As we've got another rather nice sunny day. You're going to walk on a little bit further to the rugby field and just put a few more houses between us and the two radios. We'll see how it gets on. Then we've walked on a little bit further. We're in the nice open rugby field. Now of course we've lost a little bit of height coming off the flyover, but we are completely open here, not surrounded by anything, but we're a little bit further from the house and there will be a few more houses between the two radios, so a little bit tougher for a radio, but really it should make it no problem a dark side radio. Let's give it a shout. Yeah, audio test 1 2 on the BAOFENG. Yeah, audio
test 1, 2 on the BAOFEng here. We are now at the rugby field on a very nice sunny day. Audio test 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mary had a little lamb. The fleece was white as snow.
Just decided that before we go on and flash that radio with Exuma, just going to do a receive test, find out if that speaker has been improved over the original Quansheng, because I always thought those were a little bit tinny. I suspect it's pretty much the same speaker. So I'm just going to do a receive test. We're going to use the XH Data 100 radio. I think it's the E100, which is pretty much the same radio, to be honest. It's just another incarnation, slightly different layout, but it does the same thing as the BAOFEng. But anyway, let's have a listen to it. Yeah, audio check 1, 2, 1, 2, audio.
Yeah, audio check 1, 2, 1, 2, audio. Mary had a little lamb. Audio, audio, audio. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, audio.
Going to bring this one to a conclusion now for this little K6 or K61 series BAOFEng. Good points and bad points. Good points is the overall build quality on the radio is really good. And I've said it before, but every time that these little Chinese manufacturers, they bring out a new version of the radio, the build quality is getting higher and higher. It really is quite good for the money that they're asking, especially like this metal bezel here, which looks very much like a Quansheng. So I did think this was just a natural progression of the Quansheng radio. It looks exactly like a Quansheng, but with that completely incompatible firmware that ships with a radio, it isn't. It is not as versatile as the original Quansheng. In that respect, it's a step backwards. Likewise, the keyboard. I love the quality of the keyboard. I think the keys they feel slightly better than the original version. But as I mentioned, and it's the same thing with the XH Data radio, they haven't got the shortcuts printed on the keys here for the menu system. So normally it would be like press menu and then go to number 2. That might be your squelch. Menu number 3 would be your TX power. On this one, you have to remember where they are in the menu. So squelch is 23, so it's menu and 23. I mean, whether I could remember that, I really don't know. So in that respect, the usability of the radio is a backward step. Like also the firmware. I'll be honest with you, and it's the same with the XH Data. I don't like this firmware that ships with the radio. I don't like the way the menu system's laid out, and I don't like the backlight. It's just too bright, that blue backlight, and if you turn it down you lose the contrast on the LCD. It makes it quite difficult to read, and it's almost impossible to film without adjusting the camera, and I shouldn't have to do that. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag really. Build quality is improved. The radio works absolutely fine as a dark side PMR. Works just as well as, but then the others did as well. And the quality's up, but yeah, not the fact that currently, as I'm making this video in October, and it's the fact it's not compatible with Chirp yet, which is a bit of a disappointment. And to get those PMR channels in, you have to program the TX and the RX separately, so it's 32 times you've got to sit and punch those numbers in, and I think even the best of us are going to make at least one mistake on those digits and then have to go back and correct it. So yeah, no Chirp compatibility, and like the XH Data currently, as I'm making this video, no Exuma compatibility, which is really what you wanted these radios for. Whether it will be compatible with Exuma 023, if it is, I'll obviously do an update on the video. And I think that will completely change the radio, because that will make the menu system completely different in the firmware. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd one really. I think sort of BAOFEng have in a way taken a step backwards with this radio as far as usability and the way the radio handles. They've taken a step forward with the build quality and the feel of the radio. So it's very much a mixed sort of bag. But anyway, I hope the video has been interesting. I will leave links to this radio on Banggood which is I have no trouble ordering from Banggood. They always sort of send stuff quite quickly. So if you're interested, you can pop along and have a look yourself. So I think that's about it for the video. As always, thumbs up from Fred in the Shed. Thank you for your view time. I really do appreciate you dropping in. Small channel, don't get that many views on my videos these days. So yeah, please, as always, look after yourselves. Stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next video. Cheers, guys.
Fred's in the shed where the magic unfolds. Fred in the shed with his trusty CB. He's a friend to the lonely on a frequency.